in Atlanta?
Look, Michael Penix Jr., if he's able to get healthy, come back off this injury, off this partial ACL tear, and be healthy and execute, they're going to give him the runway. Like, they won a competition. I'm with you there. One of the reasons, if you're Tua, that made this a very attractive destination is because their starting quarterback is injured, and I have an opportunity to potentially get a head start in the offseason and get all the reps with the ones, if you will. And so I think Tua will have a head start, as I mentioned, but Michael Penix Jr., so I do these bodybuilding competitions.
We know.
Yes.
And I always watch when I'm not on stage, there's smaller guys and then there's bigger guys. And a smaller guy is easier to look really good and symmetrical on stage. And it's impressive. But you want to know what's more impressive? The bigger guy. When he looks that's Penix Jr. When he gets on the field and he starts throwing the ball, it's going to look a little different. He has the bigger arm. I know accuracy was an issue last year. Like, he has growing to do, but that's why you got Stefanski. You're paying Stefanski to solve either one of these quarterbacks. And so if he's that guy that we believe he is, or they believe he is, then be the answer to what Michael Penix needs to unlock his talent to get him to perform at the higher level.
So I agree that, like, if I was running the team, I would want it to be Penix because I think he represents a higher ceiling. The bigger guy with a bigger arm, right? Just the pure traits of it. But this is going to be, I think, a good old-fashioned quarterback competition. You have a new GM who didn't draft Michael Penix. Like, we're going to say, well, Michael Penix was a first-round pick of the Falcons. So? Matt Ryan wasn't there. Ian Cunningham wasn't there. Kevin Stefanski wasn't there. They haven't paid him anything. They haven't even decided on a fifth-year option for him. Like, Michael Penix has started 12 of the possible, 30, how I can do the math, 12 of 34 games that he started 12 of them. And in 6 of those 12, he's completed less than 60% of his passes. So he hasn't been that good. Tua, they're paying him nothing. And he can't stay healthy. And he has a weak arm, and he can't see over the offensive line, and he has a serious concussion history. Well, Michael Penix has a serious ACL history. Like, there's a really good chance that neither of these guys
is true.
Is healthy for a full season, or is the long-term answer for Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons. Like, the odds are, and this isn't maybe the sexiest take, but the odds are this is a competition, and we see both of them this year because neither one of them is all that impressive. But I do think the traits of Penix, just pure arm strength and size, the Falcons would see him as representing a higher ceiling than Tua. But, like, both of these guys have huge question marks attached.
I agree with you that anyone interested in the Falcons would probably prefer that Penix be the guy and that he just wins the competition and is their starting quarterback going forward. But I think Tua's the better quarterback.
Oh,
Tua has been, Michael, and I get it, he's young, or he's early in his career. It's a small sample size. But in his 2 seasons, Penix is 4-8. With Kirk Cousins, who obviously was a good quarterback, they're 12-10. That's not to mention Penix is below 60% accuracy or completion percentage. Like, Tua has been a winner. I know I joke, but it's true. He hasn't beaten the good teams consistently, hasn't won in cold weather. But Tua's 44-32 for his career. All right, and that predates Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, all of that stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
Same thing.
Because I don't know if Penix will ever reach the heights as low as they are to compared to some people. That Penix or that Tua's already reached.
Tua's 44-32. Joe Burrow is 43-33. So this idea that you can't win with Tua, and I know he's not Joe Burrow, but the guy has gotten onto the field and left the game winning. The guy wins.
Not in the greatest situation as far as an organization.
I love Tua, and I root for Michael Penix. I'm all in on the Tua reclamation project.
Tua's accurate. I mean, that's a big. There's a big
led the
gap
league in completion
the accuracy between these two.
This is all true, but when you sign up for Tua, which they have signed up for Tua in some regard, and you say he's our starter, everything needs to be on schedule and on time.
Right.
If it's not, your offense is going to look completely different.
Yeah, listen. I think we're kind of missing the forest for the trees here. And as much as I love to get lost in the weeds in these types of conversations, there is a lot. There's a lot. First off, Michael Penix was not set up to be the starter his first season. So he only started X amount of games out of 34, they paid Kirk Cousins essentially the equivalent of like a $300 million contract considering how old Kirk Cousins was and him coming off an Achilles. Like they gave him a boatload of money and then they drafted Michael Penix and he only even got in because Cousins collapsed. So whether you want to say it was because of injury, whatever the reason was, he went down and then they just threw Penix in and I think it was the final 3 games or so. So that's nonsense. Clears throat, so that part was just like what do we know, just stop. So that's that aspect. Then you have this aspect where it's just like, my gosh, the fact that you want to say that there's comparable wins and losses between Joe Burrow and Tua just shows you how dumb of a way it is to look at it through that lens. This is where I wish Nick was here because Nick would just say so I don't like to say things like this is so dumb or stupid because I don't ever want to give off the impression that I'm calling these guys dumb or stupid. Like it's always the take. But when you're actually at the table with them and you actually have like legitimate rapport, someone like Nick can just be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And they know that he's not calling them dumb. So, I always shy away from that stuff cause I never want to give off the impression that I'm just sitting here and being like, these guys are a bunch of idiots. Cause that's not at all what it is. But I mean, like, it's just obviously Joe Burrow is light years better of a quarterback than Tua. And again, I told you guys this the other day, like I root for Tua. I want to see Tua succeed genuinely. It's so uncomfortable to even watch him play because of his health reasons and I'm just like please for the love of God just stay healthy. So like I love everything Tua represents. The fact that he's still going out there and playing. I mean it's the way concussions are the real deal man. I've had a handful of them and it's just like the fact that he's still going out there is really impressive. But like we're going to start to compare Tua to Brady. That's just silly. And Mike McDaniel set things up a lot. And again, I don't even think Tua is this bad quarterback. My biggest problem with Tua really is that there is a fragility to his game. There is a fragility to his game and like an embedded self-P protection, not necessarily from him, but just in terms of the way how you try to run an offense with Tua because of some of those things. That's what put limitations. If Tua didn't have any of those types of limitations, then I could see way more benefit and upside. But what I was just saying though is like he's proven that you can win with him and it's just like I don't think anyone's really expecting Tua to rise to the occasion. Let's say they're there. So he's in Atlanta now. To like rise the occasion of Tua going up to Philadelphia in January in a freezing cold, windy, snowy game or going to, best case scenario, he goes across the country to like Los Angeles, or Dallas or something like those are good scenarios, but what about the Washington Commanders, the Seattle Seahawks? I mean, like you're just talking about playing in really tough weather environments. Of course, every single NFC team that they could possibly play is like escaping my mind in real time. But it's just like I don't see how you can feel comfortable and confident with that. I just simply do not, potentially having to play in New York. Like it's just I don't know. I'm just failing to see. And again, I'm talking obviously I know the Jets, but I mean like the Giants and playoff games, right? I'm talking about like January. I don't know. And then I see Tua having an upside. Like I can see Tua having success with Stefanski. I do. But like this Falcons team was a mess. And so I'm not going to expect Michael Penix to be able to just instantly have success. And there were some legitimate highs with Michael Penn. There were legitimate moments when I'm like, alright, this guy can do it. And I was really excited. Against I think the 3 games that stick out to me was especially this past season, not LA last season. He was wildly impressive in 2024 at the end. I praised him because I thought it was so impressive how he got just thrown into the fire, and I was so impressed. But I loved what he did against the Bucs week 1. I loved what he did, again, these games are slipping my mind, against the Buffalo Bills, what he did against the Commanders. And when you then compare that to what Kirk Cousins was able to do and his record and whatnot, Kirk Cousins is a seasoned veteran quarterback. Like, why can't people understand the value of a seasoned veteran quarterback, and how when you throw in a seasoned veteran quarterback and compare that to a literal rookie or first-year starter, yeah, you're going to see a lot more success with the vet. That's how it works. That's how it works. And unless you are a hyper-athletic physical player who can add a lot of physicality to his style of play, you're just a lot more at the you're at. I'll go along and say that it's a lot. It takes longer to really grow and evolve because you're relying on essentially what makes a vet great or better than a rookie. Whereas, when you're just a more physical player, again, whether it's strength, speed, whatever it may be, you can make do. You can rely on your athleticism in a way that can potentially provide a little bit more wins earlier on in your career or some more interesting moments. I think we've seen that a million times over with these quarterbacks. Whether it's the Kyler Murrays of the world, whether it's Lamar's, whether it's the Jackson Darts, I mean, like all across the spectrum from the best to ever do it to the average or below, whatever it may be. And so, that's not a surprise to me. That's not a surprise to me at all. But yeah, listen, I made the videos about Penix and Tua and all of this, and I don't want to just go in circles with all of that, but I will say it's funny to hear Greg kind of use the example of like a small person on stage, so he didn't really explain it, but essentially when you're smaller, you naturally look bigger. So smaller people, if you're like 56 or whatever, right? You're, clears throat, an Instagram model or something like that, like you can look absolutely jacked. You have shorter arms, shorter legs, like you look jacked. It's a lot harder. I'm a little bit like taller and lanky and like just longer in that regard in terms of like my torso, and I'm the type of person that benefits from when they measure your wingspan and all of that type of stuff, cause like my arms are huge compared to my body. And so like on screen or on video, I won't look anywhere close to as big as or have as much muscle compared to someone who's like half my height, but yet I could be way bigger and stronger than them. Way bigger and stronger than them. And it's a trip a little bit. And that's what Greg is talking about, because when you're a big guy and you're trying to win bodybuilding competitions, like there's a part of you that's kind of like, man, it's kind of an advantage when you're smaller. So, but the way how I look at some of these moves and some of these decisions with the Atlanta Falcons is cause obviously I'm trying to make videos about all these teams, and so there's some teams that I'm able to just bring such energy and hype and excitement because like some of the moves they're making are like, yes, let's go. And other teams are simply not doing that. And the problem is the way how I like to, the way how I think about it is that it makes me think of when you go to like an amusement park. And my dad told me this like growing up, because I would always, when I would go to like an amusement park, I would be so excited. I always wanted to do like the best rides, I always want the fastest roller coasters, all the loops, all the action. I wanted to go as fast as you possibly can go. Wanted it all. And my dad would always say like, well, we're not going to do those rides just yet. Do the smaller rides. Do the less fast rides, less intense rides. Because if you do the best first, the other ones now will feel slower. They just won't feel as good. And so now you won't even be able to enjoy those other rides. And that's the way how some of these teams in like the Atlanta Falcons fall in this line. But like some of the moves, they're not inherently bad. They're not bad decisions. Just like some of those roller coasters, they're not boring. It's just compared to the one that goes insanely fast and has a million loops, you're just like, it just doesn't feel as fun. Doesn't feel as exciting, but this is a smart move by the Atlanta Falcons. And if they do find themselves needing both quarterbacks, then they're going to draft another quarterback in the following draft in a very quarterback-heavy, which again, what should be a very quarterback-heavy draft. Now, they said that was going to be a quarterback-heavy draft this year, and now everyone's like, no, it's next year. So, like, who really knows? Snorts, but I just think that in this moment of time, you got a veteran as a veteran as you can get at this point with Tua. You got the promise of an even better quarterback with Penix. There's both a feeling of fragility there, but at the bare minimum, you shouldn't find yourself in the situation that you had been in kind of a few years past where you're just like, we are so incompetent at quarterback and offense that we literally just cannot function. We just literally cannot function. Therefore we can't do anything productive, and I do think that Penix has already shown to not be that, and Tua, even if now Penix gets injured or whatnot, you do have that, because, and that is where I will say that Wilds brought up about like, you can win with TW, you can, because he is a competent quarterback, but when you're talking about bringing in a new era and a new team for the Atlanta Falcons, and then finally, trying to turn the page of just not being the most relevant team out there. To me, I'm looking at it as like, what's the move to make you a legitimate contender, a legitimate Super Bowl threat, an actual team that not only can win the division, but you can win the division because you're great, not just because the rest of your division is a mess, right? Like, you feel like you can win the division because like you deserve it, because you're a legit team. And they're not like, well, this team shouldn't even have a home playoff game. And so as of right now, like, to me, that's not necessarily going to be Tua. And Tua, he's one of those quarterbacks that I would love nothing more to be wrong than. I would love to be so wrong about Tua and have Tua just take over the NFL. I really feel that way. But it's just I don't think that's what's going to happen. And so you have Penix, and I do think Penix can legitimately wheel and deal. And so I'm excited to see his development with Kevin Stefanski, and whether he gets injured or whether it just doesn't come about. You still have Tua. You still have that safety net. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that is just the move. Sometimes that is just the move. And then if depending on how this all unfolds this season, you then draft and you move forward. I think when you bring in a Kevin Stefanski, I always talk about this, and it's I understand it can kind of get repetitive, but I constantly look at these things on 3-year windows. 3-year windows, 3-year windows, 3-year windows. That seems to make the most amount of sense for me. When Harbaugh got hired, it was a 3-year window. When the Eagles, got to the Super Bowl in 22 and then they needed to rework things, it was like 3-year window. And it's just like teams to me, the Lions, all these various teams, and the 3-year window can reset kind of in any given moment, but that's where it's kind of tough. Like, that's where it's almost like a Venn diagram where I have like a new 3-year window, but also like the overarching 3-year window, so it can get kind of messy. It's not a perfect timeline by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like I look at the Falcons right now, like their 3-year window to me starts today, right? Not today, but like this season. That's this 2026. This is the 3-year window. You brought in Kevin Stefanski. This is the 3-year window. I'm not looking at it as like, well, they drafted Michael Penix a couple year. No, I'm just looking at this new 3-year window because to me, this is the Kevin Stefanski era, and the Falcons obviously made concrete moves in management and whatnot. And so it's like, this is what do you do from this point forward. I'm not expecting you to necessarily be able to just jump in and immediately have a contender. Some teams have the ability to do that, and that's potentially what the Raiders are doing, and it's awesome to see. And then again the Titans, and like they're in different situations because of the pieces that they have, the quarterbacks that they have, the health that they have, etc., etc., etc. And it's like the Falcons got pieces. They got some guys. They had problems with coaching and now unfortunately they find themselves in this kind of pretty tricky to navigate quarterback situation, and that's where they find themselves in right now. And it doesn't mean that you need to figure out your long-term 8, 10, 12, 15-year solution today. Sometimes it's okay to just let's work through this right now. Which is a hard sell to a team that's been like I feel like we've been working through this for the last decade. And I get that. I really do. But in a lot of ways, when you bring in a new staff, new coaching staff, new management, etc., it's like you can't make them pay the consequences for things that were going on before they ever existed. That's just not the way it works. It's just like they have nothing to do with what happened in 2022 and 2023. Just like that they can't make decisions based on those failures cause they can't be like, well, we're in an 8-year drought here or something. It's just like, no, their career, their season, their Atlanta Falcons universe started today and that's all that matters. What happened yesterday is like nothing to do with me. And that's also kind of in a way what Danny was kind of alluding to a bit of a different degree than what I'm kind of discussing here, where it's just like, yeah, panics, you draft. We can't waste a draft pick. He's got, and it's just like I have nothing to do with that. I'm just evaluating what I have right in front of me. I'm not looking at this guy as a first round or second. It's just like this is the guy that I got. He's either good or he's not. He either can play or he can't. I ain't got nothing to do with it. It's just like this is we got to move forward. And sometimes that just takes patience. And again, I get it. It's a hard sell. It's a hard sell to just be. Like you got to have a little bit of patience with team that feels like it's just been patiently going nowhere, and I get it, but sometimes that's all there is. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Atlanta Falcons? Who do you think his QB1 should be? Tua or Penix? Do you think either of these quarterbacks can legitimately elevate the Atlanta Falcons to the level that obviously you hope they can be legitimate contenders, a playoff team? I mean, like I remember when Kirk Cousins first got signed, there was a sense of you had a lot of people, a lot of smart people to be saying that the Falcons are top of the list of legitimate contenders with Kirk Cousins. This roster, this coaching staff, etc. They're like, this is it. This team can legitimately contend. And obviously it did not go in that way. So can they get that momentum? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Subby that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next.